Hey folks, walk with me. I wanted to come up with something that I could do for a video topic that sort of counteracted my last video, which was focused on the scariest time period of my life. And not scary in a fun way, not like scary stories around a campfire kind of thing. And then it dawned on me, the easy answer here is to just do what was the most exciting period of my life and why. And a few things stood out, though definitely one thing well above the others. But I was always really excited to transition to a different period in life. So when I went to college, I was super excited. I was also the first person in my family to go to college. And when I then graduated college and moved to Chicago, I had never lived in a big city before, and that was really exciting. But in 2011, so just to put this in context, if you saw my last video with the scary time video, the time period that I'm talking about there is 2009. So by, I think it's the very beginning of 2011, things had turned around so much for me that I then had the most exciting period of my life. And what I was doing was leaving New York. So at that point, I had been living in New York for about a year or so. And I had booked a bunch of shows. If you don't know, I have previously spent a chunk of time as a touring singer-songwriter. And I booked a bunch of shows in Europe and was letting the apartment in New York go. I actually had a fiance at that time. She was coming with me. And so she was leaving her job. We were leaving the apartments and we were going to Europe to play shows, meet people, and just kind of make our way through as best we could. And the question was always how long is this gonna go? And we'll get to that toward the end. But we kicked things off in London because it's easy, right? It's an easy flight from New York to London. Sort of an easy transition into European culture because we can speak the language reasonably well. And there were going to be sort of less things different, if you will. And so sort of ease ourselves into it. Then we left England and went to Germany and flew into Berlin because the previous year I had met a couple from Berlin and they were like my age, exactly, I think. And they were really cool. They came out to one of my shows in Seattle and we then just had a really fun night together and just exchanged emails and stayed in touch. So we were going to stay with them. And then we ended up going to, I think, 13 countries, 50 something cities. And I played all over the place. I think the furthest east that I played was Budapest. Unless this is I'm gonna expose my horrible geography here. Unless Ljubljana, I think it's the capital of Slovenia, unless that's further east. So one of those though, either Slovenia or Hungary. And spent a ton of time in Germany just because it's such a big country and they really enjoy, or at least I found them to really enjoy American singer-songwriters. And there was they would really attend shows and buy CDs. And I mean, this was almost 15 years ago. So you were selling CDs primarily at that point. And as far north as Copenhagen and as far south as I think Aix-en-Provence in France. Yeah, I'm trying to think. We also played a weird show in Rome. But this was just such an exciting period of time. I mean, I was always interested in, I talked about being excited to go to college and excited to go to Chicago. Like, this was a whole other level. And just meeting all of these amazing people who were really cool to us, were really supportive. Of course, I had my fair share of shows that were basically I was playing to myself, which was sad, but that's it's just the case. There were other shows, there were house concerts where we would make, hundreds and hundreds of euros in a night. And that was really cool. And then obviously a ton in between, but there was only one, I don't know if I even would call it a bad experience. It was it wasn't positive, I guess. So we could say we essentially ran into this, I guess for lack of a better term, like a neo-Nazi in the south of Germany. I think it was near-ish to Frankfurt. And he just like got in my face on the train platform, and like nobody was super interested in helping. And he was just like yelling at me. He started off with, where are you from? And usually when we would get that in Europe, or I guess basically every other time that we got that in Europe for a whole year, it was, from New York City, traveling all over the place. And they'd be like, oh, awesome, I love New York, or I've never been to New York, but I'd love to go. And this guy just went off. I just remember him starting to name like pop culture icons like Madonna, and I don't really know what his point was. I don't know, that we were there sort of poisoning the well or something. I have no idea. But, then we got on the train and he kept mouthing off, mostly speaking in German, I think, so I don't even know what he was saying. And eventually we got off and like nothing escalated any further. But besides that, like, we just met amazing person after amazing person, tons of wonderful shows, and I wanted to stay. I wanted to just stay and keep going. She really wanted to come back at the very end of 2011 for, I think, Christmas or New Year's. We came back, or maybe we flew back on Christmas Eve, now that I think about it. And so, I had been allowed an entire year in Europe and to focus on nothing except for playing shows. I recorded a CD there. I recorded a short documentary there. And, I kind of felt like, what more could I ask for? Whether or not I want to stay, I have to give some deference here to the person who wants to head out after such a long trip. We ended up flying to New York out of Berlin, and I have a very funny story about that. Maybe I'll save that for a weekend video, because it's probably pretty short of a story, but I've always thought it was funny. And came back, and so that was the year in Europe, but it was just tremendously exciting. And stayed in touch with a lot of those people. There's people that we met that I wish that I still stayed in touch with, and I'm just atrocious at that. But if you're interested in any of the music, you can find just Dan Coyle on like Amazon Music. I'm sure it's on Apple, probably Spotify, all that jazz. There's somebody who started to put out CDs or albums right as I was sort of winding down, like I was publishing my last album or two, and they started with the same name. They started to put out stuff that's all instrumental. So if you come across like electric guitar instrumentals, those aren't me. So my albums are always sort of singer-songwriter, acoustic guitar in nature. I also still have like some Dropbox folders where I have unpublished stuff, some like full band stuff that I never published. And if you want to leave a comment, you know, we could connect and I could shoot you an invitation to those Dropbox folders if you'd be interested to hear those. But I think I published my last album in 2015 and then transitioned to like having children and raising a family and that sort of thing. But I relatively recently started writing again. And so my intention is to have something out in the world again sooner than later. All right, folks, well, if you walked with me, we're gonna get nearly 11 minutes in. And if you didn't, I certainly appreciate you watching this far. And as always, I will see you in the next video.